Welcome back to It's Hard to Talk About It. My name is Yael Bat-Shimon, and it's been a little while since I've posted one of these videos. And part of that, I felt very stuck. I felt like I'm not sure what direction I want to go in now. There's a lot of noise out there on the internet. There's a lot of noise on YouTube, a lot of people talking about what's happening in this country. And so I'm finding it hard to find my voice amidst that noise and to see what I can offer that might be helpful and that might be different from what's out there at the moment. I'm also struggling because so much of what's going on right now, I just feel really heartbroken. And I've had to be very careful about how much news I expose myself to. And so I guess I want to start with talking about that. I think for me, one of the things that's been most helpful in walking through these turbulent times, these are times for me of intense cruelty, like just a kind of cruelty that is open, that is, that is direct, it's just hard to bear, really. Also, just a lot of lying, straight-faced lying. So one of the things that's been helping me to walk through this time with some sanity and some sense of balance is actually reading the history of our country, which can also be very heartbreaking. And one of the books I've been reading lately is about, I think it's called Slavery by Another Name or by a Different Name. But this book is really talking about at the end of slavery. A lot of times, I know history, the way I learned it, American history, was a very whitewashed history. And in that history, the story was basically that slavery ended, and that was it. That was the end. There was a struggle for civil rights. In the 1960s, there was Jim Crow somewhere in there in the mid 1800s, and going into I don't even remember how long I thought it went, but that slavery ended, and that's really not accurate. One of the things I've been reading about is specifically right after the end of slavery. After emancipation, anyway, the proclamation, and it was declared illegal. The slavery was declared illegal. At the same time, one of the things that was happening was that a whole system was devised to re-imprison, re-enslave, really, in many ways, Black folks who had just gained their supposedly in name freedom. And one of the ways they did that it was really because, especially in the South, the economy really did depend on the continuing wealth and prosperity of the country, and particularly in the South on the plantations, but then not just on the plantations, like moving into coal mining and the iron works and things like that. There was a huge need for labor, and they needed free labor. I mean, the whole system, this whole country was built on the backs of Black folks who provided, against their will, free labor. So without that source, we were really lost as a country in many parts of the country. And so what they started doing was creating laws, specific laws, vagrancy laws. If you couldn't prove that you had a job, if you whistled at a white woman, or even talked to a white woman and you were Black, then you could be not just fined, but you were imprisoned. So there were a lot of different, very obscure, minor, ridiculous kinds of laws that you could be imprisoned for. Um, and what happened then is that there was this whole convict leasing system. And the convict leasing system was really great for a lot of things. For instance, even during the Civil War, um, this is horrible. I mean, actually, slavery had started to move in this direction already, not just in the plantations, but moving into industries like the iron works, creating weapons for the Confederate soldiers in the Civil War. That a lot of that was slave labor. But after the Civil War and after emancipation, there was continuing um, enslavement, if you will, of people, of Black folks who had supposedly broken these minor laws, and then they would be forced into forced labor, labor camps, into these, and in many ways it was actually much worse, if you can imagine, much worse than slavery in the plantation, because there was no semblance of family life whatsoever. And instead, like in the coal mines, a lot of slaves were working in the coal mine. I'm sorry, not slaves anymore, but yes, they were. They were actually forced labor, um, and people would just disappear. Black folks would just disappear into the system, and yeah, so the forced labor, down, imprisoned in these cages, really like cages, really like animals. Kept down in the mines for days on end. A huge percentage of people died um, in these coal mines. And this was, I don't remember the exact percentage, but a majority of the prisoners who worked in these conditions, died in these conditions, were forced into labor in these conditions, were Black folks. So how is this helping me? Because it sounds really fucking depressing. It is really depressing. It's horrifying. A lot of it really reminded me of the stories I grew up on about the Holocaust, and being Jewish. I paid that those stories feel very close to my heart. Um, it was really difficult to read this part of our history. So again, how does this help me in walking through these times? Um, I think as a white person, because I've had such a whitewashed understanding of American history, when really devastating things have happened in the course of my life, in terms of historical, political events, I haven't had, they've come as a shock in a lot of ways. Um, and the more I understand about American history, the more those stuff in the present does not come as a shock to me. Which doesn't mean that I feel immune to it or numb to it in any way. What it means for me is that I have a context, I have a framework for understanding what is happening now as a repetition, or sometimes a repetition, sometimes a direct outcome, a natural conclusion to all of the unfinished business that around race and racism and white supremacy in this country. And specifically, what I'm thinking about is ICE. I'm thinking about ICE. I'm thinking about the ways that these prison camps, these detention concentration camps, are being built in a way that's very cruel and very reminiscent of um, I mean, we could say reminiscent of concentration camps in Europe, but I'm saying now, and I'm realizing that we don't have to look that far away. We can look to this country. And so a lot of what is being done now, what is being, I want to say, tried or implemented right now it's um, it's taken right from our history. These are things that have been done before in our history. The difference being that it was almost entirely towards Black folks in the past, in our past history, um, though not entirely. And so there's a kind of, for me as a white person, coming to understand, um, the reality of who we are as a nation. Um, having this perspective, that this is not something new. It helps me to just accept reality as it is. I don't have to be continually shocked and continually asking me, as I hear so much on YouTube, you know, why aren't they this, or can't they, what is going on? This is shocking. This isn't America. Yes, yes, this is. This is America. This is America. And I think the more quickly, especially us white folks, can come to terms with the reality of white supremacy in this country, the more we can really see that what's happening today is absolutely no different. And what that means for me as a white person is that I I need to not just come to terms with it, but I need to stop going to sleep. I need to stop um, acting like this is something new, and I need to learn my history. I need to learn a realistic, complete history of the United States. Without those facts, I have no way of resisting. I know so many people out there, including a lot of white folks, want to resist what's happening right now. Um, and I would say, again, what's been helpful to me is learn our history. We need to learn our history. Then we can see this coming. Black folks, people of color, have seen this coming forever because it's always been here. Um, and if we could learn how to listen to people of color and particularly Black folks, if we could learn to listen and to believe and to really hear, then I don't think we would be in this position at all. And where we are right now is a place that is hurting, will hurt almost all of us. Maybe not the top 1%, the billionaires at the very top, um, but all the rest of us. It is hurting. It is going to hurt us if it's not already hurting. Um, so that's all I wanted to say for today. Um, I guess the last little piece of this is that um, I am trying to protect my heart with all of the news. There's some basic facts that I can find in headlines or particular articles if I need to know more. It doesn't usually need to happen every day. That I expose myself to all of that cruelty. Pretty much, I can say, you know what? I know what's going to happen. I know what is happening. It's been happening over and over and over and over again. And the specifics of it, I don't have to listen to it consume for hours. It can literally be a 15-minute chunk of time to give me what I need to know, if I need to know it. Or it will come to me. It will come to me. Much more important to me is taking care of myself, making sure I'm staying balanced and sane. And again, knowing my history, looking within myself, and and seeing those places where I can't, in myself, that I want to distance myself from what's happening. I want to make it the fault of Trump and the MAGAs. It's not solely on them. It's really not. It's an unhealed wound at the very core of our country, and I am part of that. I am part of that because I'm a white person who's been socialized into white supremacy. Um, Racism, I have not, until much later in adulthood, in the last 5, 10 years, really learned American history, a real version of American history that's inclusive of all of who we are as a nation. So those are the things that I'm focusing on now, um, so that I can be effective in this world and going through this time. Thanks for listening. Love to hear your thoughts, and take care of yourselves. Thank you.